Okay. Oh, great. We've got some great people. We have great people joining us. It's really, really exciting. And I see that some of you are you guys can see the questions as well.
Yeah.
And then Frances, you're replying to people who are
Yes.
behind.
Yes. Yes.
Great. Super. Okay, everybody. Hey, it's 4:00. Let's start. Welcome everyone. And I want to say thank you to Com Collective. Com Collective is a group of really amazing entrepreneurial women who are all in the communications field, and many of them deal with design. And they have put together these great talks for all of us. This will be on their website later in case you want to go back to reference it, but we're really excited for them to invite us here today. My name is Stacy Kunstl. I am also known as Dutchie, the co-founder of Dunes and Duchess. My boyfriend and I have a custom furniture and lighting design business located in New Milford, Connecticut. And I spent about 20 years as an interior stylist working for, you've seen my work in traditional home, in veranda, in country home, in country living, in Better Homes and Gardens, in New England home, in Luxe, in beautiful kitchens and baths. So coastal living, lots of those. But I am joined today by three amazing women who are out there styling projects for magazines, for commercial ventures, and for individual architects and designers every day. I'm going to start off and have Frances introduce herself to us.
Okay. Oh, it's so great to be here. And thank you, Stacy, so much. I'm Frances Bailey. I'm weighing in from very rainy New York City. It's just great to be here. I have worked for all the usual cast of characters, Veranda, House Beautiful, El Decor, BH&G. And it's just great to be here. Hello.
And Catherine, where are you today?
Hey guys, thanks for having me. I'm Catherine Lott. I'm based in Beaufort, South Carolina, and I've done styling projects with, again, all those usual suspects, but primarily Southern living, coastal living, and kind of, further south in terms of that. But also, one thing that I've worked on is styling projects with builders and other designers.
Really good. And Karen Lidbeck.
Yeah, so hi everybody. Very excited to be here with this great crew of women. I've been working as a stylist for a gazillion years and have worked for all the same editorial magazines that my friends here have worked for, all the Better Homes and Gardens magazines, Country Living, Country Home, House Beautiful, and so many more, most of the national publications, and New England Home Magazine in Boston, where I've worked with Stacy for many years. My business has blossomed in many other ways, into catalogs, into working for interior designers, for builders, for architects. There's just so many different ways that you can work as a stylist. And I'm just having a lot of fun exploring and working for a lot of different entities.
So I'm thinking that a lot of the people who are joining us today are interior designers. Let's talk about what the role of a stylist is and how that differs from being an interior designer. Who wants to tackle that one first?
Well, I'll dive in. I have such respect for interior designers because y'all have to take those long meetings. You have to handhold your clients through buying everything and working with the contractors. I do not have the patience for that. So I'm in full respect for interior designers. I think the way my brain works is I like to show up and see what this sweet, what is the magic of that house? And then you want to amplify it. And so I kind of feel like an extension of the interior designer staff for the day or 2 days or 3 days, whatever it is. We get in there, we blow it up. And the other thing is we can be a heavy. So like if, say that homeowner has been hitting home goods real hard, we can edit down back to y'all's original design or take away that thing that mother-in-law brought in or whatever. So I think sometimes the style, we just bring in that fresh eye. We're not colored with all the stories that you guys are, all these interior designer stories. So anyway, I think.
That's great. Catherine, how do you describe your role as a stylist when you're working maybe with an interior designer for the first time?
I think it's important to come in as a stylist and understand that I can see the bigger picture. I can look at it, as a designer, you're essentially knee deep in the process. You see the details, you see all the flaws, you see the,
There's a
oh
lot of
gosh,
emotion usually behind it too. Yeah.
there's a lot of emotion. There's a lot of, just ongoing blood, sweat, and tears that we all face. But as a stylist, we can come in after the fact and say, hey, I know what we need to capture here. It's again, it's that different perspective and that different approach, and being able to really capture that and work with a photographer who also specializes in this is critical.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yes, we'll talk about that, because a photographer is either your best friend or your worst enemy when you're on a photo shoot. Yeah, and you always want them to be your best friend. Karen, when you are working with maybe like with architects or builders, how are you explaining your role to an architect or a builder or to an interior designer?
Well, I mean, obviously, everything that these guys just said is something that we all do. I think a really strong thing that we bring to the table is coming into a space and kind of evaluating what the best way to shoot it is. Mm-hmm. Because when you have your own project, you don't really know how to shoot it, how to portray it, and what those best shots would be. So usually what I do is I work with an interior designer, an architect, go and take lots of scouting shots, really figure out, okay, what are our best shots going to be? If we only have 15 shots that we can do in a day, how are we going to take this house and sum it up in 15 shots? And that's a very difficult thing to do. And then you have to figure out everything that needs to go into those shots. So the prep work that you do before a shoot, the planning is really essential, and it takes a lot of time. And then once you've got those shots and you know what they are, you can plan what you want to do. And then you have to go shopping, and you have to, are you going to bring in lifestyle? Or are you going to bring in
about starting with that shot list? And is the shot list, is it better when a stylist or a photographer makes it, or when the designer or the architect makes a shot list? I mean, how is it most effective?
I feel like everybody that I've worked with in this field, like you guys have, really kind of depends on us to make those decisions, because they can't see it the way that we know it's going to want to appear editorially, which we've had so much experience with. And I think it kind of takes some of the pressure off them to have somebody decide, this is a really great way to show this room, give them many options. Or maybe they're doing it themselves. Maybe they're going in and taking those pictures themselves. But I think being organized from the beginning is just a really important way to start.
When Catherine and Francis, when you guys work for Veranda or for Southern Living, or did they typically send a shot list with you, or who decides how something is shot?
Always. I've never gone on an editorial shoot without a shot list, and 100 years I've been doing it. So yeah, they do. And then of course there's always freedom, and I mean, the brands trust, they hire you, they trust you to do your job. So if we get there and there's some magic being made in a room that they didn't know about or had changed, then we jump in and we get it. But your homework assignment definitely has to get done, and that's that shot list.
Yeah. Go ahead, Catherine.
Oh, I was just going to reiterate that. But yeah, no, the same.
So if we're working for an individual designer and we're taking these shots in the hopes that they would be picked up by a magazine or something like that, it is probably pretty important that you guys are honest and can say, oh, well, I love this room, but no, we wouldn't shoot directly into the corner, just because you've put some pretty chinoiserie paper there.
Yeah.
That's true. Sometimes though, like if an interior designer hires me, then they need some stuff for their own conversations with clients. So say a client is like, they're getting a lot of questions about outdoor spaces. So they need to shoot a lot of outdoor spaces, and maybe the outdoor spaces aren't all amazing, but they need it for their portfolio, then so be it. Then we shoot them. So, but you're right. It's helpful. I think we're all pretty open with our clients in a really respectful way of what's really magic and what is, if there's time. There's always the if there's time list.
But that's an interesting point though you're making, is the time element of the whole thing, because when you're on a photo shoot, time is the essence. You don't have a lot of time to like, maybe I want to put these flowers here. Maybe I want to put some books over here. Now let's switch it around. And you can't keep moving things in and out, because you have to get things done fast and you have to make those decisions fast. So that's why you have to plan ahead of time, right? I mean, of course there's spontaneity and things that you move around and change once you're there, but having a game plan from the beginning is really important.
Do you guys often set up the day before, or is it more, or is typically the pay and the timeline and everything, is it only showing up that morning and getting it all done? Does it depend?
Depends on the job. What do you
Yeah.
think, girls?
Most editorial jobs, you get a prep day, and I mean, some of that's travel, right? But you get a prep day, and I would say 95% of my when you work directly for an interior designer, I get a little bit of prep. Sometimes you do just, it's balls to the walls. You show up and you go for it. But you want, a prep day is good. Here, Karen is telling the truth. A prep day is worth it.
Yeah, a prep day should be really part of it, because what are the things that you're gathering in that prep day before the shoot day?
Well, there's times when you're bringing in furniture.
Yeah.
Then you need a prep day, and you're coming with a truck filled with stuff. Then you definitely, sometimes you need a full prep day, right, Catherine?
Definitely.
I mean, 100%.
So, and sometimes you don't.
And other times it's smaller, it's the grocery store, it's the flower market,
Right.
extra props.
A lot of times the designers haven't even seen the space in a couple years. So it's just like, does it even look the same? Like, are we even getting the same house? So then you walk about and you kind of see, and let's face it, everything's a little worse for wear with everybody at COVID, everybody's home. So that cute media room is trashed, right? Y'all, the dog is eating everything. I mean, right? Things are not looking so great.
Kids' toys all over the place.
It's unbelievable. It's crazy. Yeah.
The bookshelves have been dismantled. Nothing. Yeah.
What do you think, Catherine?
Strip it all down and kind of rethink what it should look like. I've been in a couple of instances where we're shooting for builders or shooting for other designers, and we walk in and clearly the teenagers have been hanging out on the couch, which is fine. But then we've got to go in and basically make it look like a room again and get the dirty socks off the couch and, all that fun stuff. So yeah, the more time you have, the better. And I think too, another critical key is scouting shots, is having as much information ahead of time in addition to the shot list. Because if I know what I'm getting into, I can at least plan ahead in terms of if we need food or fruit for the, for the counter, or flowers or things like that. I think if you've got more information of where you're shooting and what it looks like, just even from iPhone photos, it's truly helpful.
And who usually provide, I mean, sometimes it's probably ideal if you as the stylist, or even as with the photographer, can walk through the house, figure out where the light is, figure out what room you're going to start with, work on that, refine that shot list so that you know exactly the order that you're going to attack things the next day. Those are always really good things to know. On a photo shoot, who makes the decisions? And do you make that clear to the client going into it? Oh, okay. Karen just raised her hand. Karen makes the decision. She may look really sweet. She may look really tiny, but she is fierce.
No, I'm joking. With the photographer, you make decisions, but I think the stylist decisions are mostly the stylist working with the interior designer, of course. Right. And then the photographer is working on the lighting, working on the lenses that they want to use, where the camera needs to be set up, and then of course it's a collaboration.
Definitely.
Ideally, in an ideal world, it's always a collaboration.
Right.
Yeah. How about Catherine, Francis? What about you? Like, who, do you tell the designer, I'm going to be making the decision, there's two different ways to look at this. If you're representing the magazine, you are making the decisions.
Right.
You get the final say because you have the relationship with them. They have hired you. You are in command of the situation. If you're working with an architect or an interior designer, and some of them are used to running the show and may try to tell you how to do your job that you're obviously very good at. How do you handle that?
Hopefully well, but
answering that question.
That really honestly, well, by the time you get there, by the time you have already had your pre-production call, you've gone through the scouting together, you are in it together, and they know that, and hopefully they sense that. You're like in the bunker together, so they know, and you're showing up at 8 a.m. with flowers, and you're working hard for them, and they see that, and so therefore they respond to that. And, if there's a couple times where I've had to be like, look, you're hiring me to do this. Trust me. And then inevitably, it works out. Like, but there is, especially with emerging designers, what they are still trying to figure out their voice as a design. And
That's
so,
a really good point.
right. And so they need a little bit of, I think maybe some space to figure that out, but also some direction. They need like somebody to say, no, this is really the better shot. Trust me here. And it always pays off. It always pays off. But if a designer feels super strongly about something, or architect, look, if they're writing the check, they win. That's how I, but I'm definitely going to say my 2 cents.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean,
and sometimes you have to give it to them both ways.
Of
You
course.
know, also there's a
that always works.
I was working with this designer, and you know, her palette was very neutral, but she had this amazingly textured wall covering behind these chairs, and it was all about putting these bold pillows in the space. And she came in and she looked at she looked at the room. She didn't look on the computer. She looked at the room and she was like, nope, those aren't going to work for me. And I was like, are you sure? Because they really bring out, you know, something from an adjacent room. And we ended up swapping the pillows out for something that was safe. Mm-hmm. And at the end of the day, when we were rolling through all the photos, we got to the photo with the safe pillows, and she saw it and she was like, oh, I get it now. Yeah. I understand seeing all the photos together. I understand what you were trying to do now. Do we still have that old picture? I was like, nope. Not going back. Sorry.
Yeah, because Stacy, that's an interesting point. Is that I think something that we all bring to the job is telling a story. You know, you go in there and you think about, okay, what's the story that we're going to tell, and how are we going to pull all these pictures together so that they all work together?
Yeah,
that is a great point.
Yeah, and that's really definitely storytelling. And what is the story? You have to think about that. Is there going to be a lot of lifestyle? Is there a party? Is there what's happening in the kitchen? What's cooking? What are you serving for dinner? You know, is there something happening in the computer room where the kids have been hanging out? All those things. And what kind of lifestyle do you want to add to it? Mm-hmm. So great point. That's an element.
Like, Catherine, do you have any rules like that about how the storytelling evolves from shot to shot? Or, you know, like, I know that a magazine would never run a house that has a fully blown out set breakfast table and a fully blown out set dining table, you know, for dinner, because it would be confusing to people. But do you have any, you know, guidelines for people about how to sort of build in some storytelling?
I think it's important to be able to showcase what it would feel like to live there. You know, I think with a lot of these publications, from Architectural Digest to Southern Living or whatever it be, everything in between, you want to give people this idea that they could potentially live there. You know, like, we're a cover try. It's always about how can I relate to that photo enough to buy that magazine? And so I think when you're styling these projects in terms of telling the story, it all has to relate back. And I think if we can give people, that consumer, this idea, hey, I can live there, or, you know, I see that they left those flowers, you know, sitting on the counter ready to be cut. That's something I would do. Or, you know, just those little moments of clarity and understanding, and kind of that relationship of what that looks like is really key in this storytelling process. And to y'all's points, I think it's important to say, hey, you know, how do I relate those rooms room by room? Because that's also important when you're selling, you know, this photography back to magazines, or not selling, but, you know, you're giving it back to them to potentially run, and how they all relate together, essentially.
Yeah, you really wanted those images to tell a story without them even having to think what the words to go along with it should be. And I think one of the things that you guys are always asked to do as stylists is that, you know, sometimes you have to dumb it down a little if it's, you know, a certain publication, and other times you kind of have to expand and live beyond what you are accustomed to. I mean, Frances, shooting with Miles Red. I mean,
well, that's an easy job. It's Miles Red. I mean, if I make that look bad, I need to quit my job. Like, right? That's crazy. He just gilds the lily. So that's really like me buying coffee and bringing flowers. Like, you know, the harder ones are the ones that are like where our girlfriend, it's like a more normal, accessible house, and you need to romance it, and you need to bring in some magical moments. And there's
so
that.
Let's talk about what some of those things are that we always show up to shoots with. So what are some of the things you always have in the back of your car for a photo shoot?
I have seen Karen, Karen, you need to show them your shoot kit, because it is great. It is amazing, y'all. It's like bigger than my New York City apartment. But I mean, for me, that's vases, books, and throws. That like there's like a group of each of those that I will not show up on a shoot without. And then my other thing is, so many of these homes are, everything is new. And I tell my designers, I'm like, guys, you can't be the oldest thing in your house. You can't. That is my styling board. You have to bring something old. It's true. Maybe
I love that. I love that.
Right?
Yeah. I'm going to use that.
Yeah. Yes, please.
Yeah, that's great.
You have to do that. So you just need a little bit of layer, a little bit of that.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's sort of like going to a wedding. You need something old, new, borrowed, blue. You need all of those things. But Catherine, what are some of the things that you always bring to shoot?
I actually pick through my house before I leave. Yeah. I mean, essentially, I bring things that were my grandmother's, or things that really tell a story, that are crusty and old, and old crates, or just anything that adds a little bit of personality. Even if it's a modern house, you can add an old book to a table and open it with a pair of glasses. There's so many little moments that can be created that start that lifestyle story for you, and make it so much more approachable in the long run.
Yeah. Hey, there's a little bit of background, and I don't know if it's somebody who there may be. Do you guys hear the little echo? Like somebody else is with us too?
Yeah, it sounds like a bell.
Yeah, Calm Collective, you may just check and see if all of your audios are off, just because it's a little bit of background. Anywho, I know that some of the things that I always, how do we feel about bringing rugs to a shoot?
Oh yeah.
Done that.
You bring rugs.
Yeah,
it depends on the designer, depends on the project. What about art?
Art, definitely.
Yeah. This is like, I actually think art's really tricky and deserves a bigger conversation, because it can really change the whole design.
True.
And I think that that's not something, like I have vintage pieces like that I'll just pop in and like we'll hold up in a bathroom or something. But I mean, like really those big moments that deserves a bigger conversation than like, and then like the gallery that you're working.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. Don't worry about it. I won't respond.
Right. I'm always thinking that like a lot of times I'll encourage to a designer to work with a gallery, and so because some homeowners just aren't going to have the art that it's going to take to get something published. Either it's not quite the right thing, and then that's a delicate conversation, and you always have to, if you can't say something nice, don't say anything at all, but you also don't want to hamstring them when it comes to getting published. So, maybe it's not the most appropriate piece of art, or maybe it's home goods art, or, they just have a place filler, but it's always great, to have those relationships with galleries so that designers could go in and borrow something for the day. I know I've done a lot of that in the past.
And also directly with artists, right? Like having artists, that's also a great way to champion emerging artists. And also look at mirrors, and then the placeholder art that is totally fine until they find that forever piece, like the window over the left bank, all that.
Yeah.
When you go into a space, what are the things that you look at and you say, okay, I'm going to play off of that in this space? What are the things that really kind of clue you into what you're going to bring and how you're going to approach styling something?
Oh gosh. It just depends, right? Everything has its own, like sometimes it's the location because it's amazing, or like the last project I styled for Kevin Isbell, who's on this call, he is the master of color. So I know that it is not going to be an all white shoot. It is going to be a crazy mix up that's going to be amazing. And it's, so it just depends on what that designer's special sauce is.
Yeah, I think it depends on the style. Is it a country house? Is it a modern house? Is it, what is the style? What are the colors that are there? What the style basically tells you what you have to start looking for and what you need to bring. And just going back to something you were talking about earlier, Stacy, is that I think it's really important whenever you're styling any project that you bring a lot more than you think you need.
Oh,
You have to bring a lot of stuff, a lot of flowers, a lot
like
of
so much
plants,
it's
a lot
going to
of,
scare the designer.
yeah. I mean, you people, when I go to a shoot and I open the back of my car, people are like, oh my God, you know, but
Yeah.
it all gets used, it all gets placed, it's amazing how much stuff a house can suck up.
I always say the house just eats everything.
Right. Yeah. And you want choices. You want to make sure you have those choices and you're not stuck with like, oh my God, I don't have something really important that I need here.
And you can't reuse things.
Right.
You can't have props marching in from the kitchen over to the living room. It doesn't, you can't do that.
However, you guys, there is like, and I know y'all can really speak to this, but like, you remember in like the 2000s when like Domino came out and they had like every girl was in a ball gown without shoes on a chair. Like there was that moment. Like, so styling definitely has trends. And I went through the 80 list when it came out, the top 100, and only one dining room table was set or even had stacks, right? Out of 100. So it really feels kind of pared. There's a real trend for pared downness, which I think is kind of nice. Like, so I'm embracing that.
But
Okay,
I love setting a table. That's my favorite part of a photo shoot. My favorite part of a photo shoot is doing the kitchen and having something happening, really cooking, like there's something going on. And I love a table, even if it's informally set, like people are just throwing down their plates and they're grabbing a cup of coffee and somebody's got toast and somebody else has cereal, it doesn't matter. But that's what I like to do. I like to add that feeling that the people are living there and that something's happening, you know? So I think a dining table or breakfast table is great with stuff happening, even though sometimes just requires a big, huge, gorgeous bouquet of color, you know, so it can go either way.
So let's talk about flowers, because do we all do our own floral styling for these shoots? Yeah. And what are some of your rules, or what are some of your guidelines for flowers?
Anything in season is going to look the best. And I swear, I don't know about y'all, but how often I've gone to the New York flower market, I've spent $1 billion on flowers. And then the thing, you know, the thing on the side of the road is the chicest. Like, you know, so you're like
foraging, what you can forage for.
I mean, Catherine, you're really lucky because you live in a climate that is much more conducive to having, you know, more seasonal things. What do you do for flowers?
Honestly, I go to the grocery store. I just
really,
yeah, I do. And I actually try to make it so, especially if we're shooting, you know, for a designer or a builder or even for a non-season shoot, I try to make sure that it doesn't tip you off. It doesn't say, oh, was shot in the summer. You know, I don't put sunflowers in every shot because that can read fall or it can read spring. It just depends on, you know, obviously what else is in that bouquet. But I think it's important to try to keep it almost as seasonless as possible when you're styling the florals, just because you want those photographs to transfer from season to season.
Yeah.
But sometimes you're shooting for a magazine and they want a fall story and you want huge branches of yellow leaves, or you want all orange dahlias, or it's going to run in a June issue and you want all of those peonies. So for magazines, I think sometimes it's really important that you know what the season is or what the season could be, and you style it for that. So
that's a good point.
I think it can go either way. I think you have a really good point. I think sometimes it is important for it to be year round.
Sure.
Yeah.
I love going out and whacking the hell out of people's gardens.
Me too.
Down tree branches.
Yeah.
There's nothing fresher than that.
Right? You're driving to a shoot, your car's filled with stuff and you think you have it all. And then you see like these yellow wildflowers growing along the side of the road and you just jump out and you start cutting like mad and they turn out being the perfect thing, you know? So,
so true.
Yeah.
We had a stylist, I've worked with a stylist before that did that for an Idea House shoot, and she accidentally cut down poison ivy, not realizing what she was doing.
Oh, no.
I sent an assistant once out to cut stuff that she had hives all over her body in Vermont.
Y'all, that's an episode of
Never
Shit
forgiven me.
Life gets interesting, doesn't it? It's not always glamorous either.
So I have a question from the gallery. Joanne is asking, what are the dead giveaways that a stylist did not style the room?
Well,
it might be a little stiff.
Yeah.
You know, And placement, the way things are placed,
That's a good
I
one.
think is really important. How things are placed. You can.
I agree. Or whatever your focus is. I think that's, you can always tell too. Like I can look at things on Instagram and be like, oh, there was no stylist, or there was no, there was no true focus in the room. It's just an all over, oh my gosh, this is overwhelming.
Or it's just an all over, like there's nothing that's drawing your eye or delighting you from afar. And I think that probably most people just don't understand layering.
Layering. Yeah.
And a kick in the pants.
And what's that, Frances?
It needs a kick in the pants. Like I think a lot of these rooms that are so beautiful and calming in real life, they die on camera. So really it's all about how does it look on that camera? It doesn't even matter, it doesn't matter what's happening over here. It matters, does it look good right here?
It's all about
so here's a good point is that things are going to look really different on camera, and it doesn't have anything to do with real life. So you really have to let that.
Right.
Or the mess behind the camera. I mean, there's so much to be said for paring it down and pulling it back.
Yeah.
Because it's about what you see through the lens of the camera. It has nothing to do with what's happening in the room. You have to really think about what you're seeing, like your example earlier, Stacy, with those pillows that you use. It's all about what you see through the lens and what's the shot is. It's like you're making a painting. It's like a canvas.
It is.
I agree.
And there's
a great
composition of all the things together, perfectly placed in a painting.
So it has nothing to do with real life, including moving around furniture. Some rooms need to be reoriented for the camera.
Yeah.
And
almost every time.
Always.
Every time.
Well,
you know what? Most people walk into the room and they're like, what happened to the furniture in this room? Why is the chair over there and the couch is over here and the coffee table is crooked? But it's because the lens distorts everything and you have to move it all to make it fit.
Yeah.
It's really.
I also think that if you're working with like a master interior designer that is like worked on a project for a year, like they've got it down. I think the harder is when, it's more real life living, right? Then those spaces need a little bit more, fussing and moving.
So it does freak designers out sometimes when you turn the sofa around or you've moved everything, so it isn't necessarily square within the room, but there's a method to the madness. And the method that I tell them all the time is it's a stylist's job to make the designer look like a genius.
That's right.
I think too, you don't ever really shoot square, face on, and unless that's what the shot or the room sets you up for. So I think it's important to, know that you're gonna get the angle that captures the best view of that space.
And because sometimes you really literally have to almost change the room around. Right, you guys, haven't we all done something where we've actually taken the couch, put it on the side, put the chairs on the other side, and the interior designer's like, yeah, okay, that works. You're right. Because they see that for the photo on the computer screen, wow, that looks good, but it didn't look good the way it was originally. So sometimes you do have to deal with that.
Yeah.
And that takes a lot of time.
Yeah,
it does.
So you have to feed through. That's the thing. It's like you're always racing, right?
Always.
On a photo shoot, you are racing.
And we should also tell designers that they shouldn't try to make stylists and photographers work after dark.
That's a great idea.
It doesn't really work. It's really hard to take photos in the dark.
Yeah.
But Michael Partenio does it really well. I'm sorry.
He does.
I've done so many shoots with him in the pitch black and it looks like it's daylight. So
he also says, we'll eat when it's dark. We'll starve to death on a photo shoot with him. Let's talk about photographers for a second, because I always think it's really important for the stylist to have a relationship with the photographer before going into it. Obviously, we've all been thrown in with photographers we've never worked with before. And sometimes it's great and sometimes it's not as great. I never want to work with a photographer again who won't let me look through their camera or look at their screen, or, even when it's in progress. That's not a collaborative type of person you want to work with.
Right.
But how often are you guys asked who you would suggest for a photo shoot?
every week.
All the time.
And my biggest referrals, but ones, and I know y'all feel this way, but my biggest referrals come from photographers. They know that their job is so much easier, is cut in half if we show up. And when they will have a better shoot, they're going to be happier with those images. So they are our biggest champions. Like,
yeah, that's true.
It's they really, and they look out for us and they help us lift those heavy sofas.
We love our photographers. It's
We
true.
do love our photographers.
Well, and they become a stylist too. I think that's important, that they help you find that right shot, that right view, that right angle. You know, they're just as critical in this whole process too, because they're, you know, obviously they're setting it up from the get-go, but then they help move that one little piece that makes it that perfect shot, and all those little things come together. And if there's a collaborative relationship, that just makes life so much sweeter, for sure.
Yeah, that's true. It's true. And you learn to work together. The shoot goes faster. You understand how everybody thinks, what your styles are. It definitely helps. And but I definitely think there's a difference between the stylist job and the photographer's job. There's a really, you know, a photographer doesn't want to be a stylist. They don't want to have to bring props to a photo shoot. They don't want to have to tell you where, no, you should put the flowers over there, or maybe you should put the trays here and the fruit. Let's move this around. That's not their job, and it shouldn't really be their job.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. There's another question that Joanne is asking. There seems to be a trend toward minimalism in styling now. Do you agree?
I'm on board with it. I like it.
Depends on the magazine. But yeah. I think so.
You know,
do you think, okay, so this trend toward minimalism, do you think it's because people don't know what to put in a photo? Or do you think it's like just, I mean, the more minimal it is, the more perfect it has to be, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Exactly. You need 10 vases for that one perfect vase.
It's harder. It's harder because it has to be perfect pieces, right?
Yeah, it's a pendulum. Like, I feel like a couple of years ago, everything was so layered, and, you know, it was all about the you know, all that. And now it's clean, and it'll go back. That's just how it is, right?
Yeah.
So here, okay, I do want to get to some of these questions now that there's Kate Gurry is saying, I'm curious how many of you started off styling through an agency, or how many of you built your careers on your own? I've heard a number of photo styling agencies. I've heard of a number of photo styling agencies, but I feel unsure about them. Does anybody have an agent?
Nope.
No.
I didn't think so.
No. I think
you guys are all.
I know. I started because I worked for a magazine. I worked for Women's Day magazine. That was my first job out of college, and I worked in their photo studio and started learning about styling, and then realized that there was a whole world out there, and just went from one magazine to another. But so I was in that business, and that's how I learned it. Mm-hmm. What about you? What about you guys?
Same
Catherine,
thing.
Francis?
Yeah. I was on the side, and then got to work with people like Karen. Was like, God, that looks like more fun than sitting at a desk all day.
So you were an editor at Country Living magazine.
Yeah.
That was fun. I worked with you there.
That's right, 100 years ago.
Yeah. And Catherine was on staff at Southern Living.
Yeah, I started at Southern Living, working with them full time, and just started working on photo shoots, and then we stopped hiring out stylists because I was just doing it, and it kind of grew into a career, essentially.
And Stacy, you started in the magazines too. So we all.
Well, I was a writer, and then when I moved and went freelance, the editor of House Beautiful said, well, you know, why don't you find us some houses? Which I was like, okay, I'll figure that out. And then he said, oh, well, you know, style and photograph them for us. And I was like, okay. I think the very first photo shoot I ever did, I showed up with like $120 worth of lilies and some linen napkins. That was all I had. So I apprenticed to someone who had worked not only with Martha Stewart, but with Yves Saint Laurent and Karl Lagerfeld, and learned everything I could from him for about a year and a half. And it was amazing. And he had this great philosophy about talking about styling as looking at it as a sculpture, and you have negative space and positive space, and all of those things, like Karen had said, need to work together like a painting.
Yeah, I think I was an artist in illustration and a fine artist, so I was trained in the whole idea of making pictures, you know, in illustration and making art, and so the concept is always kind of the same. It's like it's the way I look at it.
Okay, so let's talk about fun stuff. Let's talk about stuff we hate. How about that? Okay. So somebody had said, why is it important for designers to hire stylists? And what are some of the pitfalls of designers trying to style things on their own? So
I just think they're too close to it. I think that they're in the forest that they can't see the trees, and they have too much in their head about it. So we see the beauty in the space that they've maybe, or they see it this way, but they don't really know if they turned around, it's actually better this way. So, so that's what I think. I think they're just too close to it, and stylists bring that fresh perspective.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
Catherine, you want to go?
I agree. Yeah, no, I agree with exactly what Frances just said.
We have no idea when we walk into a room. It's like that the labor that went into deciding the pattern on that chair.
Exactly.
And you know, designers will be emotional and be attached to things in the room. And so when you walk in and you have that detachment, you're able to make much cleaner, probably more effective decisions on how it should look.
But I think one really important thing, besides just our design perspective of what we think we need to bring in, is just the expediency that's needed in organizing and working on a photo shoot and getting the most out of a day that you can possibly get. If you've got a photographer for the day, you know, and you're doing it yourself, you're going to realize to get it all done, it's a lot of work. And right. Our experience tells us how to move fast, how to get things going, to make those suggestions about how the room should be shot, what lenses have to be used. Right. There's just so many decisions that have to be made in such a short amount of time. I mean, imagine you have half an hour, sometimes 20 minutes to get a picture pulled together.
Yeah.
And, you know, I know so many photographers that say, oh my gosh, this person, they just couldn't make up their mind. Did they want these flowers or those flowers?
Time is money.
To go here, which pillows? And it just, they couldn't get it, took forever to get the shoot done. It didn't get done the way it could have been. So I think, you know,
we are pros at pacing our day. I think we are all pros of pacing our day and working with the photographer to make sure we get that homework assignment done. And also being frank and saying, you're not going to get 24 shots in a day. Like, it's just probably not going to happen, or they're not going to be all great. Like after 16, you're probably not going to want to run that one really big. I mean, but you know, you listen to the people that have been doing it 100 years. And also a lot of times you need stylists because plan A doesn't work. And I know all of us have been like on an Easter shoot outside when in the Hamptons and it starts to snow. Like, you need pros there that know how to work crazy stuff. If I had $1 for every time somebody said, well, this is the first time that's ever happened. You know what I mean? And I'm like, it happens every shoot. Something weird happens. The kid, you know, this summer, a kid came home in COVID, we're all covered up, and he had hair lice. His first day of, come on. So we all had to do. Yeah.
That whole house had lice, and we were doing a 2-day shoot there.
Yeah, it was insane. So I'm like, you can't make this stuff up. So pros know how to work a plan B, and that's another reason to hire stylists.
So I would say that stylists are truly professional problem solvers. Mm-hmm. And it's not that a stylist will find a solution to the problem because you have to get the job done. There's no plan B. There's no coming back tomorrow. You must complete the task, and therefore you become amazing problem solvers. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Linda Simonton from New England Home asks, how do you get a great cover shot? Luck. Yes. Great architecture. I don't know. World's best flowers.
Yeah.
Being in the right place at the right time.
Yeah. I mean, you can plan the best cover shot in the world, and half the time it's not going to happen.
It's so true.
Sometimes you just see it.
Multiple things, multiple locations, and you have no clue what's going to run.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. If you theme that issue and you know, and yours is not on the theme or whatever, forget about it. Right.
Yeah.
Anyway.
But I will say, you can walk into a room and you know if there's a cover shot there.
Yeah. And Stacy, you also know if you do want to try for a cover shot, how you need to style it.
Yeah.
You need to, you know, it's very important if you're shooting a cover, you need to have certain things that you're looking out for. And that, and you'll think about that and you'll style it for that.
So as a designer, you're never thinking about, and because all of you have worked for magazines for so long, you're thinking about, where are they going to put the cover blurbs?
Right.
Where would the UPC code go if it's on the newsstand?
Right.
where, you know, what does their logo look like, and how does that fit within a photo like this? You know, those are all things to take into consideration.
I mean, we're shooting with the template now. I know y'all do that. You know, the photographer puts a template. So you really, there's no questions. You are styling directly for that moment.
Yeah, absolutely. But go back for a minute and tell us about the things that you're going to yank out of a room immediately when you're styling it. I don't want to say that. Yeah, it's the things we hate things. Yeah.
I get tired of the family pictures. I mean, I keep going. I mean, I do not care, with all due respect. That's just not part of my, get it out. Get it out. I don't want to see them.
Anything too personal.
Right.
Anything too personal. Yeah.
And like weird travel art. So like sometimes people go on vacation to like Mexico and they bring back something that's super cool. And I get that there's a fun memory with that, but it is weird in the room. So, you know, maybe it might need to find a new home until the picture is taken. So, and then
we talked about this earlier, but sometimes it's bad art. You just know that the art isn't right for this, for the client, for the magazine, for whoever. And you have to find a subtle way to be able to change it out for something different, you know. And
I would say like things that are blatantly home goods.
Yeah,
I love home goods. I shop them all the time, but there are just some things that are just like, oh, that's so home goods. You can't have that in the photo.
Right.
Anything that stands out too much, you know, I think it's good to have things that stand out, but anything that stands out too much can be glaring. And sometimes that's home goods. Sometimes it's just shiny and bright or whatever.
You know, sometimes, guys, the kind of house that we go into is the house that the interior designer has finished, but they haven't been able to finish it all the way. And they want to get in there before the homeowners move back in, you know, and get it and really get it filled up and done the way that they want. And, you know, I don't know, I kind of run into those kind of projects a lot. So,
I get that too, that they're just, we like to say, well, I'm not sure where these people moved from, but obviously their last house burned down. They brought nothing.
Right.
They don't have any books. They don't have any objects. They've never been anywhere. I don't know what the deal is. Those are the toughest houses.
They are so hard. Right. It's all 90%, right? They do the big stuff, but the smalls are always a thing. They're always hard.
So we're always looking for, if you're a designer and you're, you know, go to flea markets, go to antique stores, find, you know, little bits that can be added as layers. They're not things that are going to be the main focus of the photo, but just having it fill space is sometimes all you need. You know, I would shop all the Parker Kennedy stuff. I would go on there and buy all of their vintage stuff and add it for shelves and bookshelves and things like that. And, you know, just finding things that are really different.
100%.
Yeah. So when you guys style a shot that you're really in love with, how can you help a designer get the most out of that shot?
Well,
how can you get more mileage out of the photography that you do for them?
Well, you need to shoot for, you know, now it's all about social too, like, right? Like so often.
Would you shoot differently for Instagram than you would for print?
Yes. Yes.
What does that look like?
Meaning if a designer, well, you know, it's like, well, what's the first go? Like if you're pitching it for a magazine, you need a lot of verticals, but say you need a nice square, you can get a good square out of this living room, then, you know, we might, you know, do that. Like if somebody's Instagram game needs some help, you know, definitely. Or if they have like a newsletter that they do and they have a spec, you know, they know what that ratio is going to be, you should shoot for that. Like, I think you got to slice the ham really thin now and like take as many behind the scenes and videos. And I told my designer, that's another reason to hire us guys, because we can be fussing with the flowers and steaming while y'all are boomeranging in the back. So you really, it's like two sets going on now, right? And I mean, I'm serious. Snapchat away, do whatever you need to do.
No, you're absolutely right.
Yeah, it's a great way to extend your shoot. Sorry, Karen. Yep.
No, I often tell designers, architects that, you know, when we're there and we're styling these rooms and we're getting them so beautiful, we might not only have time to shoot it one way, but you should be there with your iPhone, getting additional shots, getting details, getting in there, taking more pictures for yourselves and getting as much out of it as you possibly can. That day when that room is looking the best that it's ever going to look, get as many pictures as you can just with your iPhone.
Yep.
you know, and get those little Instagram moments that you need, you know.
And
So,
just a reminder that the rooms adjacent to that room that it's in having its perfect moment are going to look like a hurricane hit them.
Yeah.
oh yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
All around and behind you, right?
And I love,
Get
don't
the
you love
homeowners out of the house.
But I love behind the scenes when they own that journey and it's like the beautiful image and then you go 2 inches and it's like, you know, throw up, vomit,
Yeah.
throw up over here. I love that. 'Cause that's real, you know, that's.
So Alicia Connolly's asking, she says, oh, you guys are awesome. And she says, well, how do you find a stylist, especially if, you know, you've moved or you've just started your business? How do you find a stylist? And then how much can you expect to pay for one?
Well, I think when it comes to paying, I think that's something that you should just email or tag us each on individually. I don't think we should really talk about that because I don't know. They might not want to tell me what they're charging. Or, I mean, it's not like there's a universal fee, but
Scope of work. It's going to depend on scope of work.
yeah, a scope of work.
Yeah.
Exactly. How many days, how much work is it? Is it a big job, a small job? I mean, it's, you know.
Are you bringing a lot? Are you bringing a little?
Yeah.
You know, is there travel time involved?
Right.
For your portfolio and
But we all probably charge a day fee. There's probably a day fee. And then, you know,
But
so.
everybody would do an estimate depending on the scope of work.
Mhm, mhm.
And you find them by looking at all these great magazines and seeing the teams that are doing them. And then you follow them on Instagram but don't just stay on Instagram, go to people's websites and see if you like their voice. By the way, y'all, we spend a lot of time together. So do you even could you put, you know, do you like this person enough that you want to see him for dinner? You know, you know what I mean? So think about that. You know, some of these shoots go on forever. So
and have a phone conversation with them. Talk to them about, you know, their process and how they work with photographers. I've done that so many times and it makes me more comfortable. It makes them more comfortable.
Mhm.
That designer more comfortable with the investment. You know, it's about that relationship. And frankly, if we don't hit it off, you want to know ahead of time because you want to make sure the investment is worth your time and your money, essentially.
Yeah.
I mean, basically you're dating, right? You're kind of dating each other and you got to get a good vibe going on.
You don't think it's more like well, no, I'm not going to go there. I'm not going to pimp you out, Francis. Everybody everyone's Instagram handles are here. So you could reach out to Catherine, Karen, or Francis directly to talk to them about things. And I will say that being stylists, we also know other stylists. So maybe we can't go to Arizona or California and shoot something, but we know someone that a designer or architect could contact in those locations too.
Yeah, and certainly, as you said earlier, photographers, you know, app stylists know all of us, know, you know, other people. They can recommend people too.
Yeah.
That they work with a lot.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's a great group. And we're getting lots of people saying how much they've liked this, which is great.
Fun being able to talk about this, all of us together. It's so much fun.
There's another question about when we're like, Catherine, when you're pulling things from your house in your own like prop library, do you charge a rental fee on those things, or is that sort of part of your day rate? Or
that's a part of my day rate. I just, you know, I go into a shoot knowing that I'm going to bring my own stuff no matter what. So I just consider that a part of my day rate. Obviously, I'm not going to leave it there at the end of the day. But then obviously there's also a prop fee at the that includes flowers and any food that we have to bring, things like that, you know, perishables that I'm going to the store and purchasing.
You know, and another thing I didn't mention that, you know, you guys probably all have relationships with stores that you can borrow things from that
or rent.
I'm sorry.
And rent.
Yeah. So is that something, or do you rent from prop houses ever, or?
I think that gets really expensive for the designer. So I try to avoid that. But I mean, certainly have, especially for editorial. But
and do you ask the designer to go out and get things too?
Yeah, absolutely. They show up with a huge car load. And I mean, oh my goodness, I cracked up in the Miles Red story you mentioned. Everything on that table was from his apartment. I mean, it wasn't even the homeowners. Isn't that how it is? But like he's so, you know, so that's, of course, the best shoots are collaborations, because the stylist, I mean, I don't know about you guys, but we're given one prep day. You've spent 2 years designing a house and you're going to give me 8 hours to prop. I mean, you know, and that includes the flower run. So, you know, be reasonable. be reasonable in your expectations, all balls to the walls, bring stuff, but the more the merrier. You can never have enough.
Yeah.
Yeah, have the design assistants, but going out and getting things as well. I mean, like we said, houses will eat up props.
They're so big now. Y'all, these homes are so big. It's crazy. It's hard to make 5 bedrooms special. Yeah. Right. By that third one, I've given up.
I mean, I think it goes both ways, because I've also worked with, designers that just don't have time for a photo shoot. They're so busy working. They're just like, I need somebody to take this house for me and get it photographed and get it styled. And, they want to show up for an hour, and then that's all they can do. They just, some designers want to be there. They want to be hands-on. They want to be part of the team. And other times they're just like so glad that they can have somebody do this for them.
Yeah. A lot of times if you can say, hey, you know what, designer, park it in the kitchen. I'll come get you when it's time for you to look at something.
Yeah.
Work from there.
That way too. Yes, definitely.
Yeah. But okay, I've got a huge, the thing that makes me cry in my sleep is the once a year I get a call from a designer who did check out, who went and did her, was on Instagram half the day, comes back in and is like, oh, I wish we had tried, da-da-da. And I'm like, no, you don't get to say that if you weren't here. You have to, that's a tough lesson to learn, but you do need to be there. If you are really invested in your shoot, don't definitely weigh in if you're not, if you have thoughts about it, because that is just a heartbreaker to get a call 2 weeks and like, oh, did y'all try it like this? And I'm like, no, because we thought it was great and perfect.
Yeah. There have been times when I've worked with some designers who couldn't be there that we've just done Zoom, or we've sent pictures.
Exactly.
Take a picture from the screen, just screenshot from the computer. This is what we're doing.
They have to respond immediately, because
they have to be on call. They have to be on call, and it works that way too. If they can't be there the whole time, they want to at least see what's going, and you get that approval, or they say, I like that, but could maybe try something different. And
we all want them to love their images. I mean, doesn't that get y'all so excited when people are loving their images? I mean, nothing is better. It's like Christmas Day.
Or when they say, I didn't realize it could look like this.
Yes.
Or is that my room?
Yeah. Those are that's very exciting. It's very gratifying.
Okay, so before we wrap this up, Keita Turner has a question, and she says, do you all have a style, aesthetic, or hand that you're known for? What is sort of your sort of signature? I can tell when Karen has styled something. I mean, because I've been looking at her stuff for so long, and I'm like,
I think I can too.
Yeah. But so what are you what's sort of your signature in your photo shoots when you style?
I think I don't, it's hard to look at your own work and make an opinion, to tell you the truth, but I know that I really love to add a good amount of lifestyle to a picture. And flowers are really important to me. Flowers with impact, or plants, or just big arrangements. And so, I mean, that's the only thing I can really think of.
Karen, you are a master of lifestyle. That is the truth.
Yeah.
Anybody that calls me for Christmas, don't call me, call Karen. She can wrap, flat nail Christmas.
I like doing Christmas and Halloween and movie theater parties outside. And
yeah. You do it so well.
I love that kind of party type stuff too. But What about you girls?
What's sort of your signature?
I don't know that that's a hard one. That's really a hard one. I think with design, there's more of a signature look and feel, but I hate to put too much of me in especially in a designer shoot, because I don't want it to feel like me versus the designer. I want to make sure that reflection is.
I think that's just the hallmark of a professional stylist. It's just about making the designer look better.
That's a hard one. That's a really hard one, because I don't want to say, hey, that's Catherine.
Yeah. Frances, what about you?
100%. I do not want it to be about me. I want it to be about them. My job is whatever they are. If they're a modernist, I'm on.
But are there things like Catherine, we know what Karen is really, really good at. Are there situations and types of houses or shoots that you really feel like this is totally me?
I love anything involving water. You throw me on Nantucket, I'm going to have a good shoot. And I know you feel the same way. Anything involving, like a prawn, I'm excited about. No, but flowers, I love, the flowers. Honestly, this is the truth. It's less about an aesthetic and more about, if somebody's at the top of their game, it is an honor to be there. It is just a flippin' honor to be there and take it in And
Yeah.
it is, I mean that, like, that's what keeps it fun and fresh.
Yeah.
So just seeing people, you know, it is creating art in front of us and we get to style it. Lucky us, like crazy. Who knew this at University of Georgia, this was a job? I had no idea.
Exactly. Who knew it was a job? Well, hey, I want to thank everyone. Thank you, Catherine. Thank you, Karen. Thank you, Francis. You guys are amazing. Everybody check them out on Instagram. Look for their pieces in magazines. Com Collective, thank you so much for putting this together. We really appreciate the time to see one another and visit about something that we're also passionate about. So thank you guys so much. I really appreciate it.
Great job, Stacy.
Thank you,
Have a
Stacy.
great night. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Bye, everybody.
Great
We'll
seeing
get
everybody.
together soon.
Yeah.
Great fun.
Okay. Bye. Bye.
Bye.